Marigold's Guided Close Read. The Great Depression began in 1929 and lasted well into the 1930s. High unemployment rates led to greater competition for jobs among white males, leaving black males with lower paying jobs or no jobs at all. As a result, it became more common for black women to work outside the home as domestic servants or clerks. The details in a story can help you understand its theme. The theme is the writer's message about life or human nature. Because authors usually do not directly state a story's theme, but rather develop it gradually over the course of the text, you'll need to look for clues such as setting, plot events, and the main character's responses to challenges. A story's theme sometimes does not become truly evident to readers until the main character's conflict has been resolved. Reread lines 1 through 12. Identify details that help you understand the time and place of the story. Pause while you think. These lines offer details that help readers understand the time and place of the story. The hometown of my youth, dust of late summer, lush green lawns and paved streets under leafy shade trees, dry September of the dirt roads and grassless yards of the shanty town where I lived. What do these details suggest about what might be important to the theme? Pause while you think. The theme might relate to poverty. Remember that writers rarely state a story's theme. Details about the plot events and characters, as well as what the narrator says throughout a story, provide clues about its theme. Reread lines 15 through 26. Identify details that may relate to the author's message. Pause while you think. The memory of those marigolds remains long after the picture has faded. Devastating moment when I was suddenly more woman than child years ago in Miss Lottie's yard. Think of those marigolds at the strangest times. What do the details suggest about the theme? Pause while you think. The theme has to do with growing up. It is related to an event connected to the marigolds in Miss Lottie's yard. Remember that a metaphor is a comparison of two things that are basically unlike but have some qualities in common. A metaphor does not use the words like or as. Reread lines 27 through 29. Identify the comparison. How does this comparison affect the tone or feeling in the story? Pause while you think. Futile waiting is compared to sorrowful background music. It suggests a feeling of desperation and ongoing sadness. Characters' motivations are the reasons for his or her actions. An author may state a character's motivation directly, or readers may need to use details to figure it out. Reread lines 78 through 88. Identify how Joey and his friends feel at this point and how their feelings move the story forward. Pause while you think. The author writes that Joey and a bunch of kids were bored now. They want to go somewhere to find a new activity or some adventure. Inference is a logical guess that is made based on facts and one's own knowledge. In a story, readers can use details from the text as the facts on which they base their inferences. Reread lines 104 and 105. What can you guess about the children and Miss Lottie? Explain the evidence you used to make your inference. Pause while you think. The narrator says that annoying Miss Lottie was always fun, which suggests that it is something that children do often. Remember that details in a text can help you understand what is motivating characters to do what they do. Reread the sentence on line 141. What is motivating the children to annoy Miss Lottie? Pause while you think. They find Miss Lottie to be some sort of challenge. She is a poor elderly woman, yet they are a little afraid of her, which is probably exciting to them. Remember that in addition to being the title of the story, the marigolds were a key memory for the narrator. Reread lines 158 through 174. Identify the narrator's description of and reaction to seeing the marigolds. Pause while you think. Them crazy flowers. Strangest part of the picture. They did not fit in with the crumbling decay. Dazzling strip of bright blossoms clumped together in enormous mounds, warm and passionate and sun-golden. Interfered with the perfect ugliness of the place. They were too beautiful. They did not make sense. How might this aspect of the setting contribute to the story's theme? Pause while you think. The narrator may learn something from the beauty of the flowers. Remember that authors often use comparisons, such as metaphors, to create an image or explain an idea. Reread lines 197 through 201. Explain what the phrase, "the bars of our cage," refers to. Pause while you think. The poverty of children's lives is like a cage from which they cannot escape. How does the comparison add to the reader's understanding of the characters? Pause while you think. It emphasizes how little control they have over their lives. They have little chance of escaping the poverty in which they live. Remember that readers can use details in the text and their own knowledge to make inferences. Reread lines 237 through 248. Identify the conflicting feelings Lizabeth is experiencing. Pause while you think. The child in me sulked and said it was all in fun, but the woman in me flinched at the thought of the malicious attack. Why does she have a particularly bitter argument with Joey? Pause while you think. It's possible that she is taking her anger at herself out on him. Notice the vivid language, including similes and metaphors, that describes Lizabeth's reaction to her parents' conversation. Remember that a simile is a comparison that includes the use of like or as. Reread lines 287 through 293. Identify the comparisons. Pause while you think. My father, who was the rock on which the family has been built, sobbing like the tiniest child, out of tune like a broken accordion. What is the impact of these comparisons? Pause while you think. They emphasize the narrator's confused state. A character's reaction to story events or a situation is often a motivation for his or her actions. Reread lines 287 through 300. Identify details that help explain what motivates Lizabeth to wake Joey. Pause while you think. The world had lost its boundary lines. Everything was suddenly out of tune. A feeling of great bewilderment and fear, wishing that I too could cry and be comforted. The room was too crowded with fear. The terrible aloneness of 4 a.m. How might Elizabeth's actions have moved the story forward? Pause while you think. She seems to be at an emotional turning point. Whatever she does next will help bring about the story's resolution. Remember that a character's motivation is his or her reason for acting in a particular way. Reread lines 324 through 338. Identify the different feelings that are causing Elizabeth to return to Miss Lottie's. Pause while you think. The need for my mother who was never there, hopelessness of our poverty and degradation, bewilderment of being neither child nor woman, fear unleashed by my father's tears. Why do these feelings provoke her actions at Miss Lottie's? Pause while you think. Her feelings combined in one great impulse toward destruction, leading her to ruin the marigold garden. A symbol is a person, place, or thing that stands for something beyond itself. Thinking about what symbols stand for can help you understand the theme of the story. Reread lines 351 through 361. What do Miss Lottie and her marigolds symbolize to the narrator? Pause while you think. Miss Lottie symbolizes the ugliness and failure of the narrator's life. The marigolds symbolize the beauty that Miss Lottie had tried to create, which was ultimately destroyed. Miss Lottie's effort to create beauty in the midst of her ugly surroundings was seemingly futile. What does Elizabeth's reaction to seeing Miss Lottie reveal about her? Pause while you think. She feels she is no longer a child. Through Miss Lottie, she has begun to see the world through an adult's eyes. Remember that a theme is the message or lesson about life that an author wants to share. Reread lines 365 through 386. What is the theme of this story? Pause while you think. There is beauty for those willing to see it. What text details support the theme? Pause while you think. One does not have to be ignorant and poor to find that one's life is barren as the dusty yards of one's town, and I too have planted marigolds. Think about everything you read and everything you know to make inferences about the final sentence of the story. Reread lines 385 and 386. What does the narrator mean when she says she has planted marigolds? Pause while you think. She has looked for elements of beauty at times when things were ugly.